Three mere mortals discover their ability to create entire universes with their minds alone. Upon discovering their abilities, these three, gods if you will, join forces to create the Dark and Stormy Nights, a supercharged team of creatives with the aim of helping artists and writers around the world while combating the forces of boredom and mundanity. They are the Dark and Stormy Nights.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dark and Stormy Nights. This is Loki.
And this is Tyr.
And this is a planning episode. So if you are keeping up with us, you just got done listening to Chapter 9 last week, or whenever between last week and now.
Right.
And so we're planning Chapter 10.
Correct.
So we have a couple things to accomplish in this chapter, I think, right? So we give us a little recap of what just happened in Chapter 9.
So in Chapter 9, there was a ghost released from an asylum by the Bodak, and Lee and Nigel basically made the connection between the ghost and the undead Fae children, and realized that both had to have been released and both had the targets of the combined sorcerers. So at this point, there's a lot of disconnect between Lee and Nigel. They're still not happy with each other. Nigel's frustrated. He's I think considered Lee almost a friend at some points, but then he's also got like loyalties changed to the Combine, and so he's kind of stuck in this bad place. And then there's Lee, who's been paying off this debt for so long, working for the Combine for so long, that he's at this point where he feels a little bit of betrayal, that he's not getting answers, that he's fighting a fight that he doesn't even feel like he should be fighting, and that he's working for the bad guys in some cases.
Worse yet, he's an indentured servant to the bad guys.
Right, and he's stuck. So it's not like he can just, fuck this job, I'm out. He owes them a debt. So he's stuck, and he's pissed. And this has caused a lot of friction between him and Nigel at this point. And they're working together because they have to at this point, but any kind of relationship that they had, any kind of trust that they had is really right now in shreds.
Right.
Elliot has been shadowing Lee up to this point. He's starting to almost show hints of taking an interest in being more a part of the action, but he still has no training.
Right.
So at this point, his big move was mouthing off to a sorcerer and throwing salt at a solid ghost that did nothing, basically. So, I mean,
right.
He played bait when it was, with the reporter, and he was drawing the ghost's attention. He's got no training. He's got no way to defend himself. The kid is kind of floundering. So there's a lot of things that kind of need to happen at this point. Like, the issues are glaring, and we need to start mending.
Right. So we have to accomplish, I think we're going to try to accomplish two things in this one chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or at least part of these two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to address temptation away from the true path, right? So Elliot's path would be to become a hunter like Lee one day.
Right.
Which may still feel like that's true, but maybe with a loyalty to Rowan and Raina instead. Because I think that Rowan is going to try and tempt
She's the temptress.
Elliot
yes.
to their side.
Which, at this point, looks like the same side. Because
right.
our reader doesn't know that Rowan is anything other than just another hunter's apprentice, just like Elliot is.
Right.
So it's all going to seem very innocent, almost, but she's definitely the temptress. So he's going to start to like her. And honestly, I think she's going to like him as well. But then there's also a little bit of manipulation in there, maybe.
Sure. And then we have to have atonement with the father, which I think this is going to happen twice. But the first time it'll happen between Nigel and Lee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that eventually Elliot and Lee are going to have to repair their relationship, and it will happen again between the two of them. So, but right now, the temptation away from the path will actually cause that rift, or widen the rift anyways, between Lee and Elliot.
Okay.
And then Lee and Elliot are going to have to repair it later.
Right.
But right now, Nigel and Lee have
Okay.
to repair that relationship.
Sure, okay.
But I think that it'll be it's going to be hard to write this for me because I'm not good at this part. But I think that Lee has to recognize these rifts. And in this repair between Nigel and him.
That's going to be difficult because Lee
doesn't admit he's wrong ever.
Yes. So I think maybe Nigel is going to have to recognize these rifts and realize that he's got to offer some information. He's got to come forward with, with if he wants to repair his relationship with Lee, he's going to have to explain some things that maybe he's never explained before.
Right.
And we were talking about potentially making Lee understand why he has this debt in the first place,
Right. I was thinking about taking him back and kind of
see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
to see
that's
what
cool.
happened, because
I actually love that, because then you're showing the reader where this debt came from.
Right. So, I think we have to kind of look back, see what happened. But Lee only ever saw his side. And magic, I feel, even in this world, works where something is given up to gain something else.
Absolutely. There's
And
always
so
a price.
I think that Lee has to be shown that Nigel gave something up to save him.
Right. Yes, I absolutely love this plan.
So, and once he sees that, then maybe he can kind of come to the realization that that's how this all works, And then, there's going to have to be some kind of atonement between him and Elliot later, but I want to give him the tools to see it by having him
experience it with Nigel.
Right. Once he sees it with Nigel, he's like, oh, fuck. And of course he doesn't want to admit he's wrong or been a dick or something like that.
Well, he's not entirely wrong. He's not wrong
No,
when it comes to the Combine, but the friction between him and Nigel is probably more than it needed to be.
Sure. And it sucks to be indentured or whatever, or have to pay back this debt,
right,
or what have you. But
right, yeah. So he's not wrong to have hard feelings against the Combine themselves, but Nigel is not where he should be directing his anger.
Right. So,
but I really love the idea of taking him back and showing him the moment of his death, and Nigel's giving up a piece of his life or a time of his life to save him,
Right. Well, a piece of his or somebody else's or something like that, but somebody close to him, like I imagine maybe he had a pregnant wife and he gave up that child for him or something. I don't know.
That's an awful lot. I don't know that he would have made that.
I don't know. I don't know what Nigel has to give, So
that's
I'm trying
why I'm
to
saying, like, if he knocked some of his years off his own life and gave them to Lee.
But I don't know how immortal are
sorcerers.
Sorcerers,
Hundreds of years.
So
if he gave up like 20 years,
that's nothing.
Maybe so, but it's still a piece of his life. Would you give up 20 years for somebody you came across bleeding to death on the ground?
Well, because I likely won't live that long. No.
No, but I mean, if you lived for hundreds of years.
If I was a near immortal and 20 years was a drop in the bucket, maybe. I don't know.
Are they near immortal though? 100 years and immortal are two very different things.
I don't know. I don't know how. We didn't really discuss the. I think that they are artificially extending their lifespans and stuff like that. But how they're doing it, we never discussed.
Oh, and if they can continue to do it.
Right.
Regardless,
is
that
there
has
a
a
cap?
price too.
Yeah, they're giving up something.
There has to be a cap,
So I think it's diminishing returns, right? Every time they do it, they get less out of it until eventually it just doesn't work anymore.
Right, and maybe they still age every time they do it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So
Nigel may look like he's in his 40s, but he's really 400 or something like that.
Well, but we also said that Nigel is a younger sorcerer than these other
Yes,
ones.
he's not a full member of the Combine.
Right, he's the mouthpiece.
Works for them. He's one of many who work for them, but
right. Right, but he's not like their level.
Right. Yeah. Maybe one day when one of those ones pass on, he can take his seat.
Right, but still, that makes his sacrifice to Lee a little bit more because he's not as powerful.
Yeah, I guess so. So, yeah, it's still, it's like when you have $400 and give up $20, it still hurts, So. Yeah,
I mean, that's the point, is that he has a longer lifespan, but he still had to give some of it up for him.
Yeah. So. But yeah, Lee has to see that. And I don't know how. Well, I'll have to be really good at illustrating that in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, so I think we're going to start out with Lee and Elliot arguing about how useless Elliot is. Maybe not quite so harsh, But, you froze back there. You could have gotten us killed. The sorcerer nearly got killed.
Right, but the problem is it's partially Lee's fault. He dragged this kid into it and gave him no training. You know?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Elliot. Well, I think, but pissing off Elliot just before he walks away is going to be perfect because it's going to push him right to
that's
Rowan's
fine.
arms.
Right.
Maybe
Like,
that's
or
what we
maybe
do.
he makes some snarky comment about how much work he has to do with this kid, you know, or something like that. Like something insulting.
Yeah, I was thinking about having Rowan offer to help, but no, I think strategically she wouldn't, right?
Mhm.
Or she'd be like, oh, I can, show him some things or whatever. But I think more likely she would be like, I can help you guys, and he like gives her an eye and no, it's okay. And then when Lee leaves after he just got done insulting Elliot, she swoops in. Come on, I'll show you a few tricks so that when he comes back, he can shove it in his face that you know a bunch of shit, and because that's what he wants is that thumb in the eye at that point. Because I mean, how much insult can you take? And Lee just doles it out on the daily.
Lee is just very insensitive, So like, I think that half the time, first of all, he's not careful about not doling out insults. But also, I think that half the time he just doesn't even realize he's being insulting.
Yeah.
Like that's just his personality.
It's just matter of fact, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's being an insensitive dick the whole time.
Right.
And I think by the time he goes off with Nigel, because Nigel's like, we got to talk, I think Elliot is just ready to, let's do this, and so when Rowan is, spilling honey into his ear while she's teaching him how to flip around a gun and stuff like that,
Right,
and quick
exactly.
load and shit,
Mhm.
he
and
feels
some moves that, like a smaller person can use because he's not built like Lee,
Right.
And his fighting technique isn't going to work if it's just like Lee's, who
But
can bully his way out of shit.
I would like him to learn something that we bring up later, that actually worked. It's like have Rowan maybe have him use it against Rowan eventually, that she taught him something and he fucking uses her own move against her later.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, but at the end of it, I want him to be just cocky enough to stand up to Lee, that when he gets back, and then Lee will recognize, all right, we got a problem too, and
Right. Yeah.
we got to fix this.
Yeah.
So that's when Atonement with the Father Part 2 happens,
Right.
So,
Okay, that's cool. I like it.
but that one might be yours.
Right.
So.
Probably. Okay. So do we want to take a break and then maybe come back with what kind of training we're going to put into this?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have... that's why... excuse me. Sorry, geez. Yeah, let's come back so I can wet my throat.
Are you scared? You should be. Ooh, gave me a chill. It's the dark and stormy nights, baby.
Okay.
All right, we are back with the second half of this episode. So I think we're going to break down the structure overall. This is going to be, I think, it's going to be an interesting chapter because I think it's going to start out with Lee and Elliot together arguing in the Huntsman, right? They're having an argument. Nigel's there or what have you, and maybe Rowan is like sitting on the couch or something like that, right? And Lee is talking about how Elliot's he's untrained. He's more of a liability than he is a help and stuff. Like he lays out what he did, you know, and it's like it's not like Elliot was in the wrong or anything. It's just he was absolutely useless.
Well, right, because he's not trained.
Right, which is Lee's fault.
Right.
And I think maybe Nigel points that out and it's like, but that's you. You did that. That's your fault. And that's when Nigel and Lee start bickering.
Okay.
Right? And Elliot just kind of feels like caught in the corner or something like that, And but I think that Nigel's like, okay, you know what? We need to have this because I think Lee is like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be, indentured to the company for forever and stuff like that. It's like, but didn't you? Like, didn't we? I had to ask you. I didn't just do this to you. We had a conversation. Do you not remember how this went? Maybe we need to take you back to what happened. Why don't you come on back here with me and we'll go through what really happened. And so that's when Nigel and Lee go one way, and Rowan's like, "Come on, I'll show you a few things. I'll get you
while you wait or whatever."
Yeah, while you wait, because obviously Lee is stuck in his own head or whatever, and and then I imagine Lee and Rowan. Well, we're gonna skip over where Lee and Rowan walk off, or Elliot and Rowan. walk off to do their thing. And while they're walking off, we're going to have the backflash, I think, of Lee and Nigel, right? Where it'll go back to, what do you think? Should I tell the whole story of the Strigoi attacking him?
I think that maybe what you need to do is start where he gets the call. You know, he's in his police cruiser. So if anybody doesn't remember, we had originally said that Lee's past is that he is a former cop with authority issues. So maybe, you know, he gets the call. He doesn't have a partner because no one wants to work with him. He's, you know, Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon or whatever. You know, he's the cop that is kind of an asshole or whatever it is. Maybe he gets the call and he, you know, cops an attitude over the radio. So you get a little bit of that picture. And yeah, like you can have him walk in on some, what was it? I don't know. What will we report? The call is for some sort of disturbance in a nearby.
Yeah, I don't know, like a homeless person making violent threats or something like that, or
something,
or maybe
in
missing people
in a park or you know, something like that, like some area, you know, where nobody's expected.
Some kind of crime is
and he
going
comes across a nest of Strigoi.
Yeah.
It's not a homeless person. It's not a
it's
disturbance.
not what was called in.
Right. It is a nest of freaking Strigoi. And so obviously a human who has no knowledge of the magic world.
Well, I think if it's under the lamps, they look like humans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, once he...
regardless, Lee has no defense against these creatures. And for anybody unfamiliar, Strigoi are basically like feral vampire monsters.
That's what I'm saying is once he chases them into the shadows, they look like what they are.
Right.
And
and
then
that's
it's
when he
too
gets
late and he's in over his head.
Right. So maybe these Strigoi are actually clashing amongst each other. Maybe they're fighting over food. Maybe they're fighting over the actual homeless dude they killed.
Yeah, they're ripping somebody apart and everything
Right.
like that.
And
Maybe he
so-
kills a couple of them or something.
Right, and so maybe they're clashing with each other, and it was reported as, like, gang violence or something like that.
Sure.
Which Lee shouldn't be handling on his own in the first place.
Right.
But he shows up, and he's seeing this clash among people, or whatever. He thinks they're people. But by the time he gets closer and sees what's hiding in the shadows, what's lurking there, is truly not human. It's far too late. He's already in the middle of it, and all the Strigoi see are more food.
Right. Should we have like a hunter there or anything? You think? Or is it just Nigel shows up and fuck? You know? But bravo for taking so many out, not even knowing what they are. You know?
You think he starts firing, and
Yeah.
what if the only thing there is like a picnic bench or something? Once he sees his bullets don't work, the gun gets knocked from his hand or whatever or something. He gets thrown back onto the bench, picks up a piece of that, and starts killing them with that. A stake to the heart. Figures out that works,
Maybe.
and he actually is able to kill a few.
I was
before-
thinking maybe he chased them into like a warehouse or something like that. Like broom handle or something like that, you know?
Yeah, however you want to do it. But somehow he gets a hold of something that is able to kill these things by pure luck, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that works. And then
Yeah, but then he has to see that, like, so, because Lee ends up fatally wounded in this,
yes.
you know? But so is everything else, so it's not, he's dying from his wounds, they're not going to finish him off, tear him apart, and eat him, you know?
Right.
So, and, yeah, like, Nigel must, why would Nigel be there? But I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be explained, you know?
It doesn't. But I mean, truly the call. It's an entire group of Strigoi. Somebody had to have been called. So maybe a hunter.
Or maybe he calls it in. These aren't human, and that triggers the Combine to investigate.
Could be something like that. Maybe Nigel was closer than any of the hunters. You know.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So he sees this whole sequence, and he has to see Nigel healing him, you know, and everything. Because
Well, the agreement has to come before the
right.
healing.
He has to get the contract, and there might even be, are you fucking kidding me? You know. But you know, he doesn't know what he's getting into. But he
Right.
also doesn't know that Nigel gave up a chunk of his life for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So yeah, he definitely needs to see all those things. He needs to understand that he was dying, that he agreed to what happened, and that Nigel made a sacrifice to save him.
Right.
Like, those are the things that need to be seen by his, you know, eyes that aren't on his deathbed, I
Right.
suppose, you know?
So, yeah. And in the meantime, Elliot is learning from Rowan.
Right. So, yes. Once, I guess, maybe you have, I don't even know when you would cut over.
Well,
Once
I think
Lee realizes, maybe.
Yeah, I think Lee gets the call. He gets there. He's investigating. Go back. A little bit of, Rowan showing Elliot some tricks and stuff like that. And like I said, I think it's kind of like the pottery scene from Ghost, where it's kind of, she's holding his hands right, so he's holding the gun. She shows him how to break apart the gun and everything, And some kind of comment is made about how smooth the relationship is with, with Raina and stuff, which it probably isn't. And then you cut back over, and he is, discovering these monsters,
You know what you should do? Have Rowan sneak in some kind of tip that he'll use later against the Bodak. Like something like, different creatures are killed in different ways. Give a couple of examples. And when all else fails, take off its head. And maybe that is in the end how the Bodak ends up getting taken down.
Yeah, like 99% of creatures, if you shoot them in the head, they're done. And he's like, 99%?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like maybe have her ultimately give him some kind of answer that he doesn't realize at this time is actually an answer. It's something beyond her betrayal. It's something, true.
Right.
Because in the end, she does end up caring about him.
Right.
And in the end, her loyalty to Raina is not real.
Right.
So
do you think she's scared of her? Is that what it is in the
didn't
end?
we decide that Raina owns her?
Maybe. Yeah, like she's
Yeah.
a Dobby.
Not necessarily a Dobby, but she's like a slave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is a Dobby. But
Well, if Raina dies, she's free.
yeah.
Well, depending on the contract, but I would say that's probably true.
Right. So so truly, like, Rowan is giving Elliot something with that, how to kill the Bodak,
Right.
but without actually telling him, that this is
Right.
how you kill a Bodak. And that's her peace offering, even if nobody knows what it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and so something she gives some kind of tip. They build a relationship. We go back to Lee, and he is in the midst of fighting, and then we go back to them. He learns
Jump
a
back
little
and forth.
something. Yeah, we go back to Lee, and he is stabbing the last one or whatever, but he's near death,
Oh, you want to have him take them all out?
Yeah, maybe, or a few of them run or something.
Or maybe Nigel shows up with a hunter.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, the hunter's taking out the last couple or
Right,
something as
the
they try to
hunters-
run away.
Yeah, and then Nigel realizes.
And Nigel's walking up on the cop. That's what it is. Nigel's there to do damage control. This is a
Right.
huge den that got let loose.
Right.
And
And exposure.
right, and so he's got to find
He's-
out who saw what and erase
Right.
that memory.
Right, except instead of erasing the memory, he comes across a dying cop.
Right.
That works.
And finds out he took out a shit ton of them. And
Right.
it's like, oh, well, good job.
Right.
And we can use a guy like you. How do you feel about living?
Right. Nice.
I don't know. I feel I'm channeling Jeff Goldblum in this moment. This. So, how do you feel about living? Well, I like it. That's good. I've got some life for you. If
Okay,
you,
but he's got to be like Grandmaster Jeff
yeah,
Goldblum.
yeah. I've got some life for you if you
I
want to accept it.
fucking love Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster. Oh my god.
So, if you're into this living thing, you could just sign this contract with me and go on living. But you'll be working for me for quite a while, and then once you've worked off your debt, you're free.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good? Oh, it sounds great. Wonderful. Well, let's do this.
Were those sparkles?
Yes, I was about to say, with a sparkle and a flash, you're alive. Congratulations. I dubbed thee Lee. So, Yeah, that's pretty much. And so as Lee is being saved and he sees the energy, the life essence transfer from Nigel to himself, and I see it freezing in that moment, right? And Nigel's like, see that? That's a piece of me I put into you to save your life. That is years off of my life to save you. And that's what he has to point out. He's like, that's not free. That's not free for me, and it's not free for you.
Right.
And it can't be, because if I don't charge you for it, then the spell doesn't work.
Yeah, if there's no price, magic doesn't work.
It doesn't. I can't freely give it. That's not how magic works.
Right.
So, once Lee understands, he doesn't make the rules.
Right. There was no choice. Those are the rules of magic.
Right. So, you sacrificed to get yourself fixed. I was the conduit.
Right.
So, what that means to Lee is another story. Does that mean Lee actually has some part in magic? And maybe even having part of Nigel in him does give him some magic or some kind of magic resistance, you know?
Maybe.
Or something that because Lee never realized it doesn't work.
Maybe.
I don't know. I always like things like that, like realizing you've got more than you've got. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But yeah, so as Lee is realizing that, you know, it is fair, the debt is fair or whatever, Elliot is leaving the hotel room more confident with a few tricks up his sleeve.
Where do we want to end this chapter?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're about there, right? Where it's Lee is coming back to the lobby, Elliot's coming back to the lobby. But what does that mean? I think that Elliot is a little more cocky and Lee is maybe a little softer.
Okay. So they kind of come back, and Elliot and Lee recognizes that him and Elliot now have a rift to correct.
Yeah, maybe.
So they meet back in the lobby. And
Yeah, I feel like
Elliot's a little bit more standoffish.
Well, I think Lee says something and Elliot's just whatever.
Or maybe Lee's like, okay, kid, you ready to get to that training? And Elliot's like, oh, now you have time or whatever. You know, like something snarky.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you will then have the Neo and Morpheus scene.
Okay.
Where they're doing the real training and everything.
Right.
You know, now Rowan, I think, taught him enough to feel cocky, but this training's going to really kick his ass, I think, after that, you know.
Okay. Okay.
But I think that he's going to have a couple cool tricks where Lee's like, where did you learn that? You know, like spinning a gun out of his pocket or something like that. Out of
Gunslinger
his
shit.
Yeah. Or reloading real fast. Like, I don't know, did you see The Gunslinger, the movie?
No.
He did a really cool thing where he spins the barrel and drops the bullets in as it's spinning. And it, like, loads super fast. And I'm like, I don't know, that'd be kind of cool. Who knows? Although,
Doesn't everybody have, like, clips now?
well, and speed loaders and stuff. There's a little thing where you put all the bullets in it. Or that's another thing, you know, you just, like, I don't know, I'll describe some of this, I think, because I've seen a few where you drop the clip and then you're slamming down on a new clip as it's a magazine. I'm sorry for those gun nuts out
right,
there.
yes.
That, you know, the quick loading thing, I think, is what she's going to probably teach him most. So, and maybe a couple of like how to make ammo and what ammo,
what types of ammo for different creatures.
Right? Yeah, and to keep a bandolier of different ammos on you just in case, you know.
Right. Maybe she gives him like his own belt with different kinds of
yeah, you remember Hellboy's in the original Hellboy movie? He had like this bullet with like liquid in it, and there was like the bone of a saint in it, and you know, White Willow or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, shit like that. You know, there's alchemy bullets and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that's cool.
But, yeah, I dig all that.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
I think we're good for this one.
Wonderful. Go check us out at the Dark Stormy K1 on Twitter. Check out Tyr. She's got several books out. You can check her out at at Nova Drake Writer on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Reddit page, r/Dark and Stormy Nights. No the. So come and check us out. Join the fun. Join the conversation. Help us write the story. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.